Kintsugi Heroes brings you the following River Murray flood recovery story, jointly funded by the Commonwealth and South Australian governments under the Disaster Recovery Funding Arrangements. To find out more about this podcast, head to kintsugiheroes.com.au. The 2022 River Murray floods in South Australia were caused by record water inflows from the Murray-Darling Basin due to heavy upstream rainfall. The slowly rising floodwaters inundated homes, businesses and farmland, causing widespread displacement, infrastructure damage and agricultural losses. The disaster significantly impacted local economies, communities and led to the region's long-term recovery. In this special limited series of Kintsugi Heroes, John Millam sits down with members of the Riverlands community and gives them space to share their experiences of their personal adversity and community resilience. It's only through connection and empathy that there can be a path to recovery. In the final episode of River Murray Recovery Stories, John Millam is joined by Mark Leigh. Mark shares his journey as a river resident along the Murray. He speaks about moving his family to the riverbanks and building a life around the close-knit community and natural beauty. When the floodwaters rose and his home was lost beneath the water, Mark faced months of uncertainty and hard work. Through the support of his friends, volunteers and his community, he managed to rebuild and return home. Mark's determination and his honest reflections show how he found hope and connection even in the hardest of times.
Welcome to another session, another conversation for Kintsugi Heroes, a conversation around the Riverland and Murrayland floods, the Riverland Recovery Project. And today it's really exciting to chat with a bloke who, literally was up to his neck in the water, mate. So you live on the river and you had a full flood experience in 2022, mate. So Mark Leigh, welcome to Kintsugi Heroes.
Yeah, thank you. I was a bit higher than my neck in water. Over the top of my head.
Yeah. And of course it was over your roof, right? So
yeah, got right up to the roof line. Bit wet.
So, mate, it was a full-on experience, and I'm glad to see you join us today and to give us a bit of background around how you found the floods and what that means for you. Just if I can start, mate, getting down to where you live and so on. It's an amazing part of the world. What is so attractive to you about the place you live, Paisley Park?
Oh, it's just a really beautiful place to live. You got the river, the bushland, and a great community of people that live here. I'd never want to live anywhere else. Yeah.
Is there a unique set of qualities that a person needs to be a river person? To live down right on the banks of the Murray?
I don't know if you'd say unique, but most people are very easygoing, friendly, helpful. I guess it's the how everyone says country people are friendly and helpful. So,
do you guys see yourselves as river people?
I guess so. Yeah, most people do. A lot of people are often out in the water skiing, fishing. It's just a part of the lifestyle, I suppose.
So you as soon as launch a boat as kind of, take a walk, right?
Oh, yeah, a bit the same. It is nice to walk around as well. It's always nice to be on the water here.
So, how did you end up getting to the banks of the Murray, mate? Where did that come from?
Well, my personal story was we had a ski boat and lived down in the northern suburbs, and it just became very hard to travel up for the weekend and then you come back down and spend all the time loading the boat away and putting it away. And I jokingly said one day, maybe we should just move there. And next thing you know, there was 3 places to choose from, and we ended up buying and just moving up here. Yeah, driving back to Adelaide for work, which was a bit easier in the long run.
Wow, that's a big move, right? Was it like, had you, you were coming up here, coming up for recreation on the river, but had you or your family had a tradition of living by the water? Is that something that was in your blood, or?
Wasn't a tradition of living, but sort of always growing up, coming to the river, spending time at the river, long weekends. So just to move here was easy choice. Yeah.
It's a pretty like it's a dedication to a lifestyle, because it's not easy to live up here, mate. It's not that far, but it's also not just around the corner, is it? So
No, that's right. I used to drive an hour each way back and forward to Adelaide for work. So you do say it was dedication to the lifestyle, but I had people that would ask me, "Oh, why do you drive so far?" And then they'd come and visit for a weekend, and then they would say, "Oh, I can see now why you drive so far."
was living by the river good for you and the family?
Oh, it was really good. Yeah. It's a small school, so I had young children when we first moved up here, and the small school was just, I found, a lot better for the kids. I think there was 8 children in the whole school,
Oh, wow.
but that let there was more personal interaction with the teacher rather than 30 kids in one classroom sort of thing. Yeah, so everyone enjoyed it, everyone liked it.
And, such a small and quite tight-knit community. There are many people who have been here for multiple generations. How was that sort of fitting into that? So,
Actually, it was quite easy. It seems to be a bit of a community spirit along with the ski boat thing. So as soon as people would recognise your boat before they would recognise you, and then they're always willing to want to have a chat and talk about your boat, what you've been doing, and help out anything they can. So yeah, it was really great.
so had you, living by the river, had you encountered rising waters before? Because, the last really big one was what, 74, but there was a few between then and now.
Yeah, actually, the first year moved in, there was a high water event where a few people were saying, "Oh, we could get our feet wet." It didn't get anywhere near that. There's been a couple of high waters since, which some people would call floods, but it's more just a high water event, high flow. Yeah, nothing like what we experienced a couple of years back.
So in 22, that was, hark back to the big record, sort of days. It's on the list of the top 5. What did you know about a flood before you actually went through that? Like, as you said, there'd been a couple of sort of rising waters, but nothing had sort of caused anything like 22 did.
Well, I've been talking to people that have been here through the 74 event, and the road that runs out of the front of our little community was actually built up to that level. So we were all reasonably confident that had been put in there for that reason. They weren't expecting it to get higher, and we would be, we weren't going to get cut off. We're not actually going to go underwater. But a bit more water came down than we expected.
So I've seen photos of your place, mate, and the water was over the roof, right? And like all the the places around you were like little sort of, the peaks of the roofs were the only things you could see from the group of houses around you. So how did it get to that stage, right? Because wasn't a fast thing, was it? It didn't just happen overnight.
Well, obviously we had the warnings that the water was coming down the river, but it was flowing that fast and they'd opened the locks. It was a very slow burn. I was coming home from work every night, walking down the river, sticking a stick in the ground so I could see how it had come up. But there was still a bit of confidence that it wasn't going to breach the levee bank because it was flowing down. But then when it got to the stage where it came over the road, then it just happened quick. Literally within a day, the whole area was underwater, no access.
So the levees were around about the 74 mark, I suppose, and the roads and stuff. So people were, understanding. But as it got to the top, how did you feel?
devastated, to tell you the truth. Hung on for as long as I could. The actual night, I'd done a run to Adelaide just to try and get a few small things out. I'd come back and it had started trickling in across the road into the creek system over the back. And I woke up that night at about 2 and it just sounded like a waterfall going into the creek. So I jumped up. I'd actually left my car up at high ground so my car wouldn't get trapped in the area. I got out with a torch and you could see a bit of water coming in. Unbelievably managed to get back to sleep till about 6 o'clock. And then by the time I got up, it was, I said to the dog, yep, it's time for us to go. So I had to go grab the car and get out. And then it was just actually didn't really know what to do. It was a bit surreal, sat out, sort of ankle deep in water, watching it rush over, coming in with not really much idea of where to go from there. Yeah.
How much did you put up, and how much did you expect to save?
Well, I had nowhere really to take big, and no way of getting any big things out. But because we were going with the estimates, I should have gone underwater, but only half underwater. So I'd put everything I could up high, thinking that I had pulley systems in my shed with everything raised up.
Yeah,
thinking that it would be all right. Yeah. And actually, that first day, it probably would have been, but the water kept rising and rising for another couple of weeks. So,
as you sat there, as you said, you just took a breather, right? You're on the high ground, looking at the water coming up.
it was almost a disbelief.
Yeah,
sort of thing. This doesn't happen. You see it on the news and stuff, but it doesn't happen to you. And then it was just a realization, oh well, we've got to figure something out. Where are we going to slip tonight, sort of thing? Yeah.
So the plan hadn't included that kind of, where do I go? What do I do? How do I get a feed and a bed type stuff?
No, not really. I'd managed to store my boat, luckily, at my local work. They had a big shed, and they were quite happy for me. And I'd already organised, and they were happy for the dog to come, because obviously the dog's got nowhere to stay as well. So and life goes on. I still had to go to work, and they were happy for me to take the dog to work. So they knew the circumstances were out of my control. And other than that, really, I had already been in plan, because they had the flood relief centres. I'd already been in contact with them and registered with them. But that was what I did on the Sunday, was then drove back an hour to Manham, where the flood relief centre was, and said, well, I'm done. I've got nowhere to go. I'd actually was expecting to be just in a swag for a few weeks. Yeah.
So so you're sitting on high ground, barely believing that the water has gone in your front door and it's starting to poke out your ceiling vents. It must have been full on. What about your neighbours and friends? How were they coping?
We were all sort of in the same boat. Couldn't really believe it. Had done the best we could. Got a neighbour friend whose house was built more recent to a higher level, so he was still feeling fairly confident, but couldn't get into his house. Was having to put himself up in the local cabins at one of the local caravan parks. So. And then it was all just a waiting game. It was a waiting game for the water to come up, and then it was a waiting game for the water to go back down.
Yeah, wow. What did it look like?
Honestly, amazing. and quite good to see. And I've seen videos of it, and until you've seen it in person, you just could not believe where all this water had come from. It was literally looked like an inland sea.
Tell us a little bit about the river. When it's like that. What was it scary?
Not so much scary. I definitely wouldn't have gone in it. It was filthy, and very strong currents whipping around trees. All sorts of debris floating down water tanks, rainwater tanks. One of the guys out front seen a couple of cows floating down.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, anything and everything you can imagine was floating. Fridges.
Yeah. I was talking to some bloke and he said he was sitting in the river and he saw one of those council barbecues just float past, and about 2 minutes later the gas bottle went past as well.
Yeah, there was a couple of stories I heard of that where someone thought it was just a gas bottle. They pulled the gas bottle up and the barbecue was still attached to it. Up comes the barbecue. Yeah.
Yeah. So like the scene itself is spectacular. Of course, it's it means like there's behind that is like, were you already thinking about the trouble it was causing you?
Well, as soon as the reality struck that, yeah, we've got no choice, we're going underwater, then it was a bit of a case of, well, what do I do?
Yeah.
There's no precedent that I've been through before, and just had no idea. You just have to take it each day as it comes, sort of thing.
No one could tell you.
No. Well, even up to the trying to deal with how to prepare your house. Some people were saying you need to sandbag and do the best you can. Other people were saying don't sandbag because you're better to let the water flow through. It'll do less damage than if it's built up and can't go anywhere. So I was making phone calls and no one could really give me a direct answer.
What was helpful?
The recovery and relief centres that they set up were extremely helpful. So that day when I drove down there, I was probably there for half an hour. So I'd already registered, so it was just a chat that, okay, yeah, the water's come in. And then, okay, what do I do? Bugger it, I'll drive back down and have another look how it's going. And 10 minutes later, I got a phone call that they'd found me a hotel room that would put me up. And I asked her, well, I've got the dog as well. I know it's fine. It's a pet friendly. So yeah, I was able then to shoot back down. That was all the way up Murray Bridge, so it was a big long driving day. But yeah, they were excellent. Just straight in. Oh yeah, we've had a phone call that you're on the way. Here you go. Here's the room. No problems at all. Yeah.
Because the water had taken a long time to come up because that's the Murray, right? Like it's not the rain that fills it; it's Queensland's rain that fills it.
Yeah. So we had plenty of notice that the water was going to get high, but the predictions were well off. Yeah, they did. That more water came than anyone was telling what was going to come down.
Yeah. Of course, that means that it takes a long time to go as well.
Well, it took a fair while to go, and what was worse for us, because our levee was so high, once the river started going down, the water was trapped behind the levee. So then we had to wait for it to leave the area before we could even get in. Yeah.
Yeah, wow. So you dammed the water as well. So how long were you? Yeah, how long were you? Were you going down and checking your place out, and it was still underwater?
Well, so I was staying in Murray Bridge, so I wasn't coming that often. But my friend was still staying just up the road, and he was giving me updates of where we'd go and send the photos. Came down one weekend because we thought we might have been able to get through, but once we got here, no, it's still too much water. We can't.
Yeah.
By that stage, the river had dropped to a almost normal level, but yeah, we still couldn't get into the area where the houses are.
So it's a long, it's 400 kilometers of sort of riverfront, that was sort of impacted from Renmark through to, Murray Bridge. What was the vibe like of the place? Like there are people who have got through okay, but there are people who are like yourselves who are, completely underwater. Was everyone sort of aware of what was going on everywhere?
Honestly, people were more upbeat than you, even people like myself that were affected. The community, we were sort of even meeting here on weekends and having a look and then going up to the pub for a lunch, and we'd still have the same joke. We'd sort of take a bit of a joke at our own expense about the floods and things. It was still reasonably upbeat and a good community. The hardest part was during the weeks when you're at work and you're trying to concentrate on your job, do your thing, but you still got that in your mind. What am I going to do? Yeah.
So tell me about what it's like to realize you've lost everything and to start to think about planning going forward. What goes through your head, man?
It was the worry of, is the house going to be totally destroyed? Do I have to start again from scratch? Because you had no idea until you actually came in and seen what was left behind, how it was going to go. It was just the uncertainty. Had no idea. I was looking at, by that stage it was, oh, well, maybe I have to buy another house. And then looking at the prices of houses, I'm 50 years old. I can't go out and start again at a $500,000 house sort of thing. And I just couldn't believe it. I'd seen a couple of small little, 2-bedroom sort of villa places. Oh, well, that would do me. That's all I need. But then the prices were still $500,000. It's unbelievable. Yeah. So then it was, oh, well, what am I going to do? Where am I going to live? Yeah.
And you're staying at still the whole time. You're staying at the hotel, and
Well, no. So I was at the hotel for about a month, which was quite nice, but it was still, you're just in a hotel room.
yeah,
You go into work, then you go to a hotel room, and what do you do for tea? You go to the local takeout or the local pub. So that was tough. But after that, I managed to find a rental place,
nice.
which was in Adelaide, which was still tough because I was working at Madam, so it was an hour drive up through the hills. But that's when I'd started looking. Oh, do I need to find something? Because it was a good 3 months. They couldn't get in here at all. Couldn't access the property. And then obviously, even when could access the property, it wasn't livable. But even that was tough because you're still paying. I still had a mortgage to pay for the house that was underwater, and then you got to pay your rent to stay where you're going. So you're just throwing money in the bin basically.
During this time, mate, a lot of people. It must have been a struggle. Did you feel like you had support or options to give you a hand? Either sort of emotionally or physically.
Well, still had the friends a lot. We were still talking and still, joking around, and the support was there even when we did start the rebuild. But at some stages, you did think, Jesus, I'm on my own here.
Yeah.
Yeah, what are you going to deal with?
And when the water's down, mate, and you looked at geez, it would have been a bit of a mess.
Honestly, that was something I'll never forget. Walking, we actually drove up. Another friend of mine and his kids came up to look at their place, and they didn't even look at their place. The first thing I did was open my shed, and they just heard me scream a few profanities, and had to come running over to have a look at what I found. Yeah, and then okay, let's go and walk inside and have a look inside. So the doors had swelled up, couldn't even open the doors. Had to shoulder charge the door in, which then fell off the hinges and an unbelievable sight, just like the house had been turned into a washing machine. Everything, mud absolutely everywhere, and the stench of the mud was terrible. Yeah.
Looking at that, that must. I have I have a childhood memory of going through a flood. Right, it just seems like it's everywhere. It's impossible to shift. How did you sort of gird the loins to have a go and get this clean?
That was it was a case of where do you start? You looked at it and it was so overwhelming. Where do you start? And I actually came up when it was time I could start, brought a pressure cleaner with a plan. Well, I've got to clean the shed out first. And then I set up a camp in the shed.
Right.
But lucky enough, locals were still here. Okay, I'll come and give you a hand. It was just a case of start at the door.
Yeah.
Drag everything out, put it in a pile, and then start trying to clean the mud. out of the place.
The place, your neighbourhood, if you will, where you got houses around you. They were in the same boat,
Yeah, oh
What-
yeah, everyone was in exactly the same situation.
Place was would have been pretty desolate and destructed.
I used the analogy that it was it looked like a war zone. Looked like we were in Ukraine. Everything was just brown, dead,
Wow.
rubbish strewn around everywhere. Fridges, rainwater tanks, you name it. It was just dumped everywhere. Could have come from your neighbours. It could have come from 400 k's up the river. You didn't know where all these things had come into the area. Yeah.
Did you want to start again? Was that like, did you look around and say the place had lost its charm?
Oh, there was never any thought of that. No, it was always, we'll get back. We'll get there. And slowly we are. So
Yeah. So a quick review of practical. What's involved in getting a place back to livable after it goes through something like that?
So the first step I had to go through was, and quite luckily supplied by the green industries, the engineers came to assess the property. I wasn't going to touch anything until there was no point in me starting to clean up for engineers to come up and go, no, the bulldozers had to come in. So then, luckily enough, you get the okay, yes, structurally it's sound. But then it was a case of literally stripping everything. I was trying to do it on weekends, and then I just realised this is going to take me 6 years to do this. So I actually had to give up work for a while and just make it my full-time job, basically. Had the windows open, pulling down bits of gyprock, throwing them out the window into a pile on the driveway, which you could then move later into a bin. Literally strip the house down to nothing but a frame.
And then you put it all together again.
And then, slowly put it all together again. In my lucky case, I had a couple of lifelong friends in trades who came up and helped me out. So like electrical things like that, you have to get a tradie to do it. You're not doing that yourself. Yeah. So, but it was a long process. Still sort of finishing, nearly there, but just a lot of us are now stuck at the point where, okay, it's livable. You've just got those little tiny finishing off things to do.
Yeah. So it's lock up, but not completely. Yeah.
Yeah. So livable, I'm back in living, but you've still got a little bit of your trim work to do. And we actually discussed it yesterday with another friend. It's just a case of, it's good enough for now. We'll sort that out later. Yeah.
Did it come back good as new?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, for sure. Just a long process that you wish you didn't have to go through, sort of thing. Yeah.
Because everyone around you is going through it. Did that make it harder or easier?
That probably made it easier because there's also people here. So we'd get together at the end of the day, discuss how the day had gone, have a joke, have a beer, have a barbecue. And then there was someone there. So there's physically some jobs that you need a second hand to do. So it was always, you had someone to ask, or they'd come and ask, what are you doing tomorrow? Can you give us a hand with that? And everyone was just, everyone was pitching in, helping each other.
The environment was changed as well, and like that wasn't. So did you think about how you were changing your relationship with the yard and the river and around you? Was that like?
Honestly, I think rather than like there was a lot of dead trees and things around and lawns, for the river environment had probably improved. And then it's just the case. So in my personal part as well, I'm sort of like the groundskeeper of the area. So that was part of my responsibility as well, to try and get And I sort of took that a bit personal as well for everyone else. Like, at least try and get the surrounding areas looking pleasant, so it wasn't just a depressing sight to see. Yeah.
So the flushing nature of a flood, do you reckon the river was grateful for the flood?
Oh, absolutely. And the wildlife just boomed.
Yeah.
So a lot of people I spoke to could not believe how, like, even while I was underwater and not in my house, how I could see the positives that what it done for the
Wow.
actual river. I mean, it's a natural event, isn't it? And
Yeah.
and just everything. It was quite amazing actually how quickly things started to green up once the water had gone. Yeah, so for the environment and the wildlife in the area, it was boom times.
As you look back now, and it's been a little while, and you're starting to get some sort of normal back into your world, do you know what you've lost?
I lost a lot, and you still sort of realize, okay, I need this. Where can't find it. Oh, that must do, because it was a case of some people did try to salvage some things that had been in the water. But in my case, because it was so overwhelming, there was no point going through every tiny little thing. It was almost shoveling rubbish out the door and so then you just go, oh, well, I can't find that. That must have gone out in the dump pile.
And is it do you feel like there's been any good or any gain in the whole process?
I wouldn't really say any gain. There was good on people getting together and helping. There also was a little bit, to be honest, a bit of bad in that. Because one of the things that they always say is a disaster brings out the best in people.
Yeah.
But in some cases, it actually did the opposite.
Yeah.
And brought out the worst in people. Yeah.
It's a very stressful situation. Do you feel like people are still processing that stress, and people have been changed, and
I definitely think people are still processing the stress. I'd say that I am as well. It was a life changing sort of event. A lot of people are sort of like now finishing their restorations, and they're back up and going, so they're happier. So even to that point, they're probably a bit happier because everything's had to be refreshed and new. So it's a nice new looking environment in their houses and shacks. But you sort of have to try and shrug off the 2 years that it took to get there. And in a lot of cases, it's still going. Yeah.
Yeah. How do you feel about your community now? Like, was it did they grow, or did they shrink in your estimation?
Probably a bit of both. So a few people didn't bother coming back, just walked away. But then, and these are the people I felt very sorry for. There was people who had just bought into the area 6 months before.
Yeah.
So then they're sort of new members to the community who are then, because they've been chipping in and we've all been helping each other. So you've made new friends and new members of the community.
Is your family interested in keeping their long association with the river going?
So my nephew does now. He moved up to Renmark just after the flood. Actually, he got himself a job in a Renmark. Yeah, so most people are. It's the river. It happens. It's back to normal now. If you walked out to the riverfront now, you'd never know.
Yeah. How does it get into you? You guys seem like very connected and very passionate about the river, right? How does that happen? Right.
Well, so in this little area, there's a mixture of 50% people who've been here for a very long time, and then some more short-termers, like five years. But everyone sort of has the same, I suppose, recreation of boating and fishing on the river. So it's a small community that we've got in here, but even on the days, say the riverfront where everyone goes and skis, you get the weekenders that come up and just set up. But there's always the group, okay, this guy's set up here, we'll set up there too, and you just make a day of it, sort of thing. So you have a laugh out of the river.
Gets under your skin, doesn't it? Yeah.
It just becomes a way of life. Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful. What did you learn?
What did I learn? I learned that life can be hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I also learned that there's some good people out there. There's some volunteers that just never met you before, have no idea, but we're willing to get out, roll their sleeves up, and get into it and help out. Yeah.
I know you wouldn't want to go through this every day, but it's almost inevitable that the river will flood again.
There's a couple of train of thoughts on that. Some people have been saying, oh, that wasn't the big one. Other people are saying, well, we've had high water events coming up to that they were technically floods, and that was the big one. I really don't know. I think the government in the managing of the waters learnt a lesson. Learnt that, they probably could have been avoided if they opened everything up a bit earlier and let more water out earlier. But even at the last minutes, with all the locks open, we're still reasonably confident that we weren't going to get wet, because you could see just how quick the water was flowing. Well, it's going to get out. I think lessons, because I'd say that no one wants to go and have to go through the expense again of what that costs to just the rebuilds. Yeah.
Yeah, rebuilds, levies, there's a lot involved.
Yeah, that's right. And the irony is now we're in flood. Sorry, not in flood, we're in drought now.
Drought, yeah. So it's a tough place to live, like it's boiling hot in summer, and, it's either too wet or too dry.
Yeah, one of the guys now is praying for rain because his rainwater tanks are running out. So
jeez,
he's gonna have no water. So
that's you guys must be wacko, right?
Yeah, some people might say that.
Amazing. What do you want the people who are looking at the river or come and visit, or maybe even looking for property? What do you want them to know?
Oh, I wouldn't let it put you off, basically, because it's a beautiful place. Sure, there was a tough time there, but you just have to take it as it is. That's an act of nature. That's how the world has always worked. So
that's a great attitude, mate. You've done it tough. What do you hope for you? What the next couple of years, as you sort of put the trim together and, get some time on the boat, what are you looking forward to?
Just get back to a bit of normality, which is slowly coming around.
And, mate, what do you need?
Oh, that's a tough question. We could have done with more help at the time. I found it a little bit disappointing, and I actually spoke with Shelley, who from the Mid-Murray Council, and she agreed that because we were not one of the pin-up places on the river, a Renmark or a Manham, we absolutely got nothing. And we still wouldn't have got any help, but Shelley went out of her way and contacted me. I had no idea that the help was there. It always got me, and I've said it a few times, that whenever there's a big disaster in Victoria or Queensland, there's dollars thrown at people. There's every man and his dog out helping, and we got a little bit of that. Oh, we'll do this, we'll do that for you, and in reality, nothing. Even our riverfront, which was a very nice, pristine lawned area where you could sit at the river with your family, that was just totaled. And when we had the first meeting with the local council, that was one of the questions most people ask: are you going to fix up this riverfront? Sorry, there's no funds allocated in the budget to do that. Yet a place like Waikerie, the day the water went down, they had machinery in there relaying lawns and getting the place looking spick and span.
So do you reckon it was because you were one bend too far around the river, or what?
I think it is. We're just because we're in Paisley, so we're the opposite side of the river of Blanchetown. We're not in the same council as Blanchetown,
right?
And we're right at the bottom end of the council area.
Yeah,
and we're just not as important we're not a postcard area, so because that was as well another thing. And I'm not political, and I don't want to get political, but you had the Premier making sure he's at Manham with all the machinery and being behind him. Oh, look, this is what we're doing, and that's great because Manham's a great town, and I was working there at the time. But places like this were forgotten. This was a very busy place. You get to a weekend, there's no spot. If you're not there early enough, there's no room for you anymore on the riverfront, and it just died out because no one wanted to go to a mud pit.
And it's a beautiful spot, mate. And it's just it's a classic sort of everyman spot. You can put your boat in. It's amazing.
That's a great way to describe it. Yeah.
You can have a really connect with the river and the people around it. So look, hopefully we can make enough noise next time if anything else happens, right? That we can make sure you guys get what you need.
Well, fingers crossed that nothing happens for a very long time. So
yeah. Absolutely. Mate, are there any messages you want to send out to anyone?
I wish I could remember the name, because there was a young lady that was working for the relief centres in Manham who was absolutely brilliant, even to the point that I'd get a phone call at work. Oh, you looked a bit down yesterday. Is everything all right? It's people like that really helped. Yeah, they didn't maybe help in a financial. The
finest Aussie spirit when the tough stuff happens, mate. So
yeah, that's right.
Well, I reckon there's a bit of fine Aussie spirit in you, mate. Like you're for a bloke who's been through a real trial, I reckon you're doing really well, mate. So congratulations on that, and congratulations on putting your place together on a very, very nice little part of the world there. I hope it all comes together in the future for you, brother.
Thank you very much.
And well done, mate. Thank you so much for sharing your story. So much insight in that, and I love the idea that your words of wisdom will be available for someone down the track who might have their own challenges as the water comes and goes.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll come again, but hopefully never as bad.
No, maybe because of the effort you guys put in. So well done, Mark. It's so good to chat with you, brother, and I look forward to seeing you down the track, and all the best with finishing off, mate, and getting bedded in.
No worries, thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Riverland Recovery Stories. If anything in this conversation has had a triggering effect, please seek support and reach out to someone who can help keep you safe. If you found this conversation interesting or helpful, please share it with your friends, family, and colleagues so we can help more people with their recovery from natural disasters. To find out more about Kintsugi Heroes and our other projects, head to kintsugiheroes.com.au. Thank you to our production team, Kintsugi Heroes volunteers, and most importantly, the Riverland community for sharing their lived experience.